First of all, good evening, and thank you for allowing me to be in the room with you this evening. There is literally nowhere else I would rather be than in this room with you tonight. Thank you for the introduction, General Turner. But I don't really come to these events to talk. I will, but that's not why I come. I come because, well, probably the same reason as you. You're in the room with your tribe, with your fellow Marines. You're surrounded by, in this case tonight, some of the best Marines we have. First to General Turner and PP&O, thank you for organizing everything tonight, and your whole team did just a great job. To General Cirati, thank you, and thanks also to the association, because you support Marines around the world and you recognize them for their accomplishments. We wouldn't be able to do that in the same way without the Marine Corps Association. And you'll hear some of it later, but if you read the citations for the awards tonight, the winners each year, for someone like me who comes to these every year, it's like eye-watering, and tonight it's no different. If you've been to a Marine Corps Association dinner recently, this is normally where General Cirati and I kind of start our routine about bald people, and we make jokes about each other. I'm not going to do that tonight because it's a really special evening. I'll save that for later at the after party, which is at his room, and everybody's invited tonight later on for that. The industry partners, which have been mentioned before, thank you. I don't know that before I came to Quantico and then as Commandant, I really understood what industry partners, the relationship that they have with the Marine Corps. I'll just say that what you do makes us the most lethal organization on earth, hands down. Where's Leanne? She's going to kill me for this, but Leanne puts all of these together. She doesn't get enough recognition, and probably her most difficult task is to make General Cirati look good every time. She did it again tonight. Where is Leanne? Tell her thank you. The awards given tonight, when you listen, like you and I will, they're named for some of the titans in our Corps' history. Each year, the infantry Marines from across the whole force, we all read in the Marine Corps Gazette and Leatherneck who the awards winner, we take notice of that. And we once again recognize that this is the lineage of the Leftwiches, right? And the Hurlburts and the Zembieks. And tonight's event, this award ceremony, is part of that legacy, I think. Because when you think about all of the Marines who sat in our seats for all those years before, and then they became great leaders by themselves. And then you remember the winners from the years before, and some of them are in the room tonight. I do take great pride in looking at where you are right now, and also to look forward, as General Turner said. And that, because you all are shaping the Marine Corps, where we're headed. Now, before we get to the real reason why we're here tonight, the awards, just a couple minutes on some thoughts from where I sit. And when I think about like reflecting, I'm not talking about how in the normal way people my age reflect, which is normally talking about how good we were, and we were. Okay, we were. Tonight, really I'd like just to mention a couple thoughts on how far we've come. So if you'll stick with me for a moment, and how good we are today. In the fall of 2019, I spoke at the first Ground Awards dinner after becoming commandant. We were in the early phases of thinking about the modernization where the Marine Corps would need to go and force design, and we really had just begun that path. Most people had an idea of where we needed to go, but really bringing that into any kind of clear picture was really hard. We couldn't see how it was exactly going to turn out. A year later, next awards dinner, different event than tonight because COVID had caused it to shrink. It was a really small crowd that year, and it went later because of COVID. And against that background, I started to lay out the changes that I thought the Marine Corps would need to make, what had happened in the past year, and where I thought we would need to go. Then you fast forward to 2021, and you put us in a tent. Thank you, Marine Corps Association. So expeditionary of you. Thank you very much. Even the retired folks showed up for an awards ceremony inside a tent. It was awesome. And at that time, the 3rd Marine Littoral Regiment was just forming out in Hawaii. And we were starting then to think more and more and more about how we needed to modernize training to compete in what would be a very different future operating environment. And then by the time of last year's dinner, we were realizing, because it was in our face, just how different the future was going to be. Because at that time, if you remember, Russia had just invaded Ukraine. And beyond most people's expectations, if you remember back March, April timeframe last year, all the predictions were that Ukraine was not going to hold on more than a week or 10 days. And it still is, 14 months into it. Why do I mention that? Because I think in addition to reminding us of the power of allies and NATO and partners, I think the Ukrainians and the Ukrainian militaries are basically putting on a master's class in how to adapt. And actually, if you watch it, this is distributed warfare, what they're doing. And I think a lot of those lessons learned that we're watching and trying to draw in, they're going to help, they're going to inform where we're headed. So when you look back, 2019 to now, I think it's pretty exciting about how far the Marine Corps has moved and the speed. The pace of change from where I sit is faster than at any time in my 42 years serving as a Marine. But Marines, faced with that speed of accelerated change around the world, I think, not surprisingly, have done exactly what they needed to do. Because adapting is really in our DNA. It's a difficult process to be sure, adapting at speed. But in my opinion, and I am biased, no other organization I know of does it anywhere near as good as the Marine Corps for 200 years. But even still, it's important occasionally to take a pause every once in a while and ensure that you're doing the right things in the right way. It's also important to look back where you began, figure out what we got wrong, what I got wrong, and I did. I can tell you without a doubt that if I had to rewind the clock, start it all over again, 2019, I would talk a lot more about what was not going to change, just as General Turner told us. Because what has not changed, what will not change, is the most important weapon that we have, the individual Marine. I believe in my soul that we are different. So I have no doubt in my mind that when an ambassador calls or a combatant commander calls, the Secretary of Defense turns to us, the Joint Chiefs. When the adversary hears that Marines are coming, they all know exactly what they're going to get. They'll be getting a weapon forged in Parris Island or San Diego or Quantico. They'll be getting a problem solver who's been tested and hardened farther than they thought. They'll be getting a leader that no matter what rank, knows how to lead. Most of all, they know they're going to get someone who will not quit, will not fail. How do I know that? Look around the room. Look at your table, look at the other tables. These are our very best Marines. They're the best our ground community has. We have a Marine from each division in the room with us who stands out from the ranks of thousands in each of those 4 divisions because they saw a problem and they attacked it. They're not colonels, they're not generals, they're non-commissioned officers, 1 from each division. They make a difference every single day. We have raiders in the room, Marines who wanted to test the very limits of mind and body, who have taken the fight to enemies that you and me will never know about, who stood next to some of our closest allies and partners on missions that will never be published. And they don't do it for credit. Those raiders don't do it for glory. They do it because there was a need that only they could meet. We have company-grade officers here with us tonight, leaders of their generation who could be making so much more money on Wall Street or a Fortune 500 company, far more than we could ever pay them. And instead, they're here. They're here having dinner with us, and they're back in the divisions. They're giving up so much more than most people will ever know about. This is what gives me so much confidence that we can move forward boldly into that kind of uncertain, unstable world. And that no matter the odds, we will win. You will win, because that's what Marines do. My victory, as a commandant, my victory is to be able to stand in this room someday, 5 to 10 years from now, and say, I was there. I remember handing that award to that Marine. Best day of my career. You saw 4 super squads worth of Marines stand up. First time in 20 years. We brought them from all over the Corps to compete against each other, to raise the bar higher. Here in Quantico, they tested themselves, pushed each other to the limit. Tough, realistic training for 72 straight hours. Pushed them to the limits. None of them gave up. You would not expect them to. Because they all wanted to win in the ways that most people will never understand. Because that's what Marines do. We win. It's what Marines like you did in Fallujah. It's why Marines in Khe Sanh held on so much longer than anybody thought they could. That's how the Marines pulled back from Chosin Reservoir. They raised the flag on Suribachi. Later this month, Sergeant Major Black and I will go to Belleau Wood. Some of you all have been there before. You know what I'll see there? I'm not going to see any ghosts. Not going to see any memories. I think we'll look into those woods and we'll see the faces of Marines that look just like the faces in this room. And they'll be looking back at me. They'll be standing there next to familiar names like Gunnar Hurlburt and Dan Daly, but make no mistake, I think the rest of the faces will look just like the faces in this room. Because I'm talking about the most binding, unbroken lineage, unifying lineage that I know of. Some may have thought I'd come up here and talk to you tonight about equipment, the new equipment coming into the Marine Corps. But the future of our force is not dependent on equipment. You already know that. Any grunt I've ever known can turn freaking practically anything into a weapon. I've never, ever been around a Marine communicator who said, sir, if I could just get a better radio. No, they freaking make our gear work that they have. Hell, some of you all remember the artillery community up in arms when we went to the 777 because, they didn't get as much of a workout moving that around as the old one did. Equipment is not who we are. Concepts and tactics, probably another topic that maybe you thought I would get up here and talk about. And we have written in the past 3 or 4 years, and General Neller before me, some concepts. Tactics will always have to change. You already know that. But if you've ever watched an attack on range 400 at 29 Palms, and you know where I'm going with this, you can have the best tactics in the world. That's not what makes a great attack on range 400. It's the Marines. It is a thing of beauty when it works right. Our concepts are just concepts. It's the Marines in the fleet who make them a reality. Even the battlefields change, right? Jungles and deserts and mountains and beaches. No Marine that I know of has ever changed who they were because of the battlefield that they stepped onto. But you can be damn sure that once they stepped onto that battlefield, they owned that battlefield as a Marine. You can be equally sure, you and I, equally confident that the adversary they faced, they sensed a change when they had Marines to face up against. And the change in the winds was not going to be in their favor. Not one battlefield I mentioned, not one battlefield we have yet to stand on, is ever the same after Marines fight there. That's why we're here. That's why we're here tonight. That's why we're celebrating at dinner. The heart and soul of everything that we are, distinct from any other service, is the bond to each other as Marines and the legacy that's built by the generations that came before us, the shoulders that we stand on. We're here because we're Marines, and Marines do one thing better than anyone else: we win. I'd give anything to go back, just one more time, to go forward with Marines, just like the ones we're celebrating tonight. This morning, there are 38,200 Marines who are deployed forward or away from their families. They're in 51, 52 countries while we're sitting here eating dinner. And if I could, me and Chip Gregson and all the rest of us, we would take our stars off and leave them right here on the podium and go out with the next unit next week as a lieutenant or a captain all over again. Just one more time as a lieutenant or a captain. Why? Look around the room. That's the reason. You think a night like this makes you proud to be a Marine? You're damn right it does. And I think you're probably proud too. Congratulations to all the award winners. It has been the honor of my lifetime to serve you as your commandant. Semper Fidelis.